Following total atomic annihilation, the rebuilding of this great nation of ours may fall to you.
My superiors are mostly hands-off, but tentacles are. Tentacles tend to stick better and keep you working. Earthling. What you call food on this planet is a disgrace. Alcohol? Yeah. Let's just say I'll be filing a Zebulonian copyright for all your drinks very soon. Very well. Proceed with your inquiry, Earthling. It does not say blast. The symbols merely resemble your language, and it's confusing you. What appears to you as letters are in fact ancient Zebulonian runes that spell the name Zerzo. Zebulonians do not forget. We have 38 words, each one working independently to remember the time you didn't pay your fair share for dinner. Oh, Mary chipped in, and she barely ate, but you ate half the food, and conveniently forgot your wallet at home. Everyone else may have forgotten that minor transgression. Little brain number 36 didn't. Well, the other day I did have something you Earthlings call a dream. I had switched my brain organs to sleep mode when I was suddenly bombarded by a strange vision. It was of a tall man in a spacesuit walking on a stage, and in the background there was a voice that said, "Elliot, break a leg!" And perhaps this Elliot is a real person, a shell of himself, trying to find a way to cope in a world he simply does not understand. But, given that my name is Zerzo and I've never broken either of my legs, my dream is clearly about someone else. Before we begin the invasion and close escrow on your planet, some reconnaissance and an appraisal needs to be done. I am here studying your people, and perhaps if the opportunity avails itself, mate with them. Then I will continue as I have, studying, appraising, and reading your amazing romance literature. Just because I am not participating in your primitive mating rituals doesn't mean I shouldn't be well prepared for the scenario. What remains to be discussed? Besides the fact that it's an intergalactic tax haven. Yes, a few things. But perhaps you can tell me more? Of course. I know all about Dr. Zornhold and his infamous job. You cannot correct me. I am a Zebulonian and you are not. That makes me right and you wrong. Do you think that just because I'm a space captain, brilliant military tactician, and devilishly handsome, that I am also not a student of history? Oh, I know all about that piece of Earth's propaganda. It depicts the Zebulon Empire as evil, the Neptunians as Earth slaves, and worst of all, Blast Hannigan as a hero. Well, for one, Blast Hannigan isn't a real name. It can't be. What kind of monster would name their child Blast? Only a Hollywood director could conceive of such cruelty. The rest is more or less true to reality, except we were liberators, and the colonists were from Maurice. They always are. Meanwhile, Earthlings had nothing to do with the incident, and yet they still plaster their names all over the credits. Typical. The simplest explanation is quite often de facto. The Neptunian media probably leaked it to your press. Good. And trust me, it's not worth watching. The acting is atrocious. Blast Hannigan doesn't even exist. He's an Earthling creation, through and through. The Zebulonian runes on my suit spell Zerzo. They're the same runes you'll find on my intergalactic pilot's license. A change of subject would be most welcome. What remains to be discussed? Via con Dio, Earthling. The air here is toxic to 3 of my daughters. Good thing I can shed them.
Hello? I always have something cooking. Ah ha ha, my favorite part of traveling. What do you want to know? That's a rather long story. After the war, I joined a group of survivors building a settlement in the ruins of an old resort in the Poconos. We built my kitchen first. It was the center of town. The place you'd go for a warm meal in the company of friends after a long day. We had 15 good years before the raiders came. They destroyed the town and scattered those of us they didn't kill. I escaped with my notes and just headed towards Appalachia. Then I remembered all the stories I'd heard about the recipes locals like Delbert Winters had created. So I set out to learn more about Appalachian cooking traditions, new and old. That's just it. I don't know. We only had time to say a short goodbye and decided it was best to separate. It was harder for the raiders to follow us that way. But it meant I might never see my friends again either. No, they weren't just my friends. They were my second family. I keep thinking maybe I'll find them in the next settlement if I just keep on going. I was born in Philadelphia, spent my whole life there until culinary school. After graduating, I went back to Philly to be near my family while I started making a name for myself as a chef. My dream was to open my own restaurant. Please, don't be. I never expected to find myself traveling this way, but I sure don't regret it. I'm still doing what I've always loved. Preparing meals, learning new recipes, finding small ways to pass that knowledge on. Yes, most of the time. I've traveled with groups and cooked for caravans, but I like setting my own schedule. Well, sure. It's always at the back of my mind. You can't tell me you don't think about that, too. But I've learned how to avoid danger, and I can defend myself if it comes to that. That's it. Most people I meet aren't looking for a fight. A warm meal and a conversation are far more common. And I have field dressed and cooked a lot of them. And one of the first people I met in Appalachia was a hunter who taught me how to spot animal tracks. In return, I showed her how to make a respectable meal with anything we caught. What's on your mind? That's fine with me. Don't forget to stock up if you're heading out again.
Hello, dearie. What's on your mind, dearie? What would you like to know, dearie? Ah, what a rude question. If you must know, it's a combination of yoga and eating well. Also, a piece of chocolate to keep me feeling young. Oh, that's also rude. I know Appalachia isn't for everyone, but no need to phrase it like that. War? Wait, which war? How old do you think I am? Well, I never! Seems like someone is being cranky. You have a nap and come back when you're ready to not be a brat. Well, would you look who it is? Have you learned how to apologize? I'm glad to hear it. Now then, where were we? Oh, exciting! Please tell Grandma all about your little adventures. Oh, is this one of those... Oh, one of those comic book things? Just be careful with your prey fighting. There's a reason my uncle walked with a limp. What? No! You didn't invite me to the graduation? I could have used the full page in the scrapbook. Oh, you grow up so fast. Oh, of course you did. I'm so proud of you. And where is this cure? Oh, so the cure is in Nuka-Cola? I'll get right on that, sweetie. Just don't drink too much medicine. You'll rot your teeth out. Is that what you call it? I'm so proud of you for trying. Let me see if I can find some recipes for you to create something with more flavor. Oh, that's an adventure Obachan has gone through more than once. Had to fight someone off with my cane last time. I've never seen someone so keen to steal a spot in line. You have such a vivid imagination. Don't let anyone take that from you. Of course. Let's do that. make sure you finish up your chores before you go off gallivanting with your friends. Come here and tell Grandma Junko about your day.
As superhero detectives, we'll leave no stone unturned. No, we should have the other Unstoppables over for the holidays. That and making Christmas albums is just what superheroes do. But who can really know anyone? Especially when that person is a master of illusion and magic. But go ahead, ask away. But I warn you, from one detective to another, you may not like the answers you uncover. Three things: a good heart, a strong will, and most important of all, alliteration. Wow, you're really good at superhero talk. I've still got a lot of work to catch up. If I'm being honest, my vocabulary is still a work in progress. It's my greatest weakness, but if I keep studying, I'm gonna turn it into my greatest strength. Just you wait, my mighty... Yeah, what you said. You're really, really good at this. No wonder you're the hero of the wasteland. Why, yes. Just the other day, I solved a particularly troublesome mystery. I call it the Inspector in the Case of the Growling Stomach. It was a tough nut to crack until I found a can of mixed nuts, at which point the case was closed. Affirmative, hero. Very well, detective. The inspector shall become the inspected. Good question, my fellow detective. There are two kinds of magicians after all. The kind that tricks you, and the kind that casts spells. The inspector is the third kind. The one that casts a spell to trick you into revealing the truth. You will. Just point me to a mystery or a tasty treat, and the inspector will eat it, or solve it. Good plan. Even though the inspector is a leader, she leads from behind, where no one will suspect her. Then, in the last episode comes the big reveal. I can't wait. Understood. Understood.
Subroutine, silent night. Failed to launch, likely cause. Total collapse of society. Oh, oh, oh. Presents, loading, cheer. Unpacking, holly, jolly. Subroutine, complete. Oh, oh, oh.
If it isn't my favorite patient. Treating a sick patient is already immensely challenging, but these mutations amplify every issue. How do I treat a sprained goat leg? Is it supposed to bend that way? Sorry, did you need me for something? Want to get personal? That's fine. That's fine. I'm not paying rent after all. Okay. Couldn't hurt to answer a few questions. Ask away. Tell me about it. My parents helped run the chapel at their hospital. The runner-up for my name was Ichabod, so I think I got off pretty lucky with Solomon. I like it, though. Makes me feel wise. Maybe a little wiser than I actually am. I guess it's a side effect to having a good bedside manner. Patients tend to open up to me. They just need someone to talk to. From rookies to top brass. Everyone just needs a chance to be vulnerable. Since even the most routine checkups can leave you buck naked save for a flimsy gown, cultivating vulnerability is already my forte. I don't think breaking doctor-patient confidentiality is in my best interest. But you should talk to them yourself. I couldn't tell you much about the members back in California, but the folk that came over with Paladin Romani are good people. I tell you, they've got some stories. Under that armor, they're just normal people like you or me. They've got aspirations and anxieties. They worry if they're doing enough, or if they're doing too much, or if they should be doing anything at all. Their determination might seem steel-clad, pardon the pun, but they're very human at heart. Of course. What else did you want to know? Truth is, I come from a long, long line of doctors. But growing up, it never stuck. Lost interest in school. Couldn't make the grades. The Army felt like a place I could make a difference, so I enlisted right out of high school. Well, not the way I would have guessed. First time in active combat. Me and a few guys from my unit got separated from the group. Artillery fire brought a whole cliffside down between us and our base. About 20 minutes later, when I found myself stitching up our medic, the calling finally caught up to me. Maybe it was in my blood. Maybe saving lives just felt more rewarding than taking them. But that experience changed things for me. I don't see myself that way. Nothing so grand. But my medic survived. I flew out to the capital to get a few medals pinned on my chest, and then my CO pushed for me to be enrolled in OCS. Spent a few years on the track to an MD when a certain apocalyptic occurrence brought it to a premature end. Thanks for listening. Would you look at the time? I've got a very, sick patient. I'm gonna need to review these charts here for a few hours. Maybe the next day or two. All right, then. Be seeing you. Give me a holler if you need my services.
Hey. Hey. Hello. Really? Wow. Officers don't usually take the time for casual chats. I mean, they're so busy. I'm sure they would if they had the time. I just mean I appreciate you asking. What'd you want to know, sir? Unfortunately, yeah. My first name's Elmer. Named after my mom's grandfather, apparently. Only fight my parents ever had, according to Dad. Mom won, of course. Dad called me Del, and it stuck. Thank God. I'd really appreciate it if you stuck with Del, sir. Right, yes, protocol. Why would you ever need to call me by my first name? Forget I mentioned it. Virginia, originally. Not too far from here, but far enough it wasn't easy getting here. Never saw too much of it, actually. The settlement I grew up in was pretty sheltered. I never really went anywhere until after my parents died.
Sure thing. Anything in particular? It's all right. I don't mind. It's been a few years since. It was just old age and health catching up, really. I guess it hits harder now than before the war. They were pretty up there when they had me. Mom was old enough she thought kids were a closed door. Surprise! I don't remember either of them without some gray in their hair. Not even when I was a kid. Mom went first, caught a bad cold, and never really got better. Dad and I were both with her at the bedside when she passed. When she was gone, I think the spirit just went out of Dad. She was the love of his life. He went a year later, in his sleep. Sorry, I'm all right. I still miss them. Quiet, mostly. Wasn't very big, just a patch big enough to grow some food and trade with the other folks in town for what we didn't have. I stuck to the mechanical stuff with Mom. Dad actually forbade me to help with the crops. He said, Del, I love you, but whatever the opposite of a green thumb is, you've got it. Not that I know about, but it's not impossible. I've got some more distant relatives out there somewhere. I had a brother. He died before I was born, fighting in the war. He'd have been 44 now. Mom and Dad didn't talk about it much. Too painful. Okay, sure. Well, after my parents passed, I didn't have a lot of reason to stick around anymore. I'd been in one town my whole life, so I wanted to see what else was out there. Joined up with some settlers moving into West Virginia. Seemed like as good a way to do it as any. Figured I'd help fix stuff, just like back home. Well, we got here. Lost people to scorched, some to raiders, and we needed farmers more than mechanics. I was as bad at that as Dad always said. Almost starved that first winter. Then the Brotherhood showed up recruiting. They needed people with technical skills, and I was just happy not to have to grow my own dinner. You got it. Some. Not as much as I'd like. I hear a lot of stories, and I met some folks out on patrol with the Brotherhood. Anything in particular you wanted to know? Not too much, besides the raiders when I first moved here. But there's been a few scrapes since then, on patrol with the Brotherhood. Super mutants. Stumbled across some when Night Shin took me on patrol. Feral ghouls are one thing, but super mutants talk. Hard to treat them as just monsters when you hear them talking. The whole slaughtering and eating people thing, though, makes it pretty easy to look past that, I guess. Night Shin didn't even bat an eye. Just keep me loaded, he said. Cool as a cucumber. He ran through 4 belts of ammo before it was over. Let's see. This might sound crazy, but aliens. Actual real-life spacemen. It was crazy. A flying saucer and everything, right over Charleston. I couldn't believe it. There were these big machines pulsing with energy and big-headed skinny green guys just popping in out of thin air everywhere. I was under orders to guard our camp, so I didn't actually get that close. I saw everything, though. Whatever you need. All right, then. Let me know if you change your mind. Hope I'm not in the way. Am I in the way?
Oh, no. Everyone appears to have died. This is terrible. Error. Cheer levels dropping to catastrophic levels. Rebooting. Complete. Oh.
Don't feel guilty about it. She was just a tool, created by the USSA. If anything, feel good that you
ended her... There's something potentially interesting coming up on the scanner. Okay, so I was able to pull this information from the signal that I picked up on the scanner earlier. I wish I had more details, but that's about all I could pull from the scanner. Oh, you're the best. And not just because we're in an apocalyptic wilderness and my options are heavily limited. I actually mean it.
Rain is so disappointing.
Nice. Boys and girls.
Aristotle believed the universe was composed of 4 elements: earth, water, wind, and fire. He also listed a 5th element to describe the heavens: ether. It's that 5th element, that unknown particle that stretches the cosmos. That is my calling. Of course, darling. What do you want to know? None I dare speak of publicly. My parents met under unusual circumstances. My mother being a former patient of Allegheny Asylum. For years they told me she was a nurse. When the scandal broke, she decided to confess to the lesser crime of being a patient. A nail file and a cake? That's their version at least. In reality, it was just university pressure. My father worked at VTU and was in need of Mother's help for a paper he was working on. He tracked her down, pulled some strings, and got her out. She stole a worker's uniform on the way out, though, which always amused me. They died shortly after the war, thank goodness. At the time, it was quite traumatic. But now I realize they were spared the worst of it. Oh, yes. When your passion is studying little green men in flying saucers, it does beg the question, how far does the apple fall from the tree? I even found an actual apple tree and shook it with every muscle in my body. It was my own little Newtonian experiment. But in the midst of making a fool of myself, apples landing on my head, I realized I never had any reason to suspect my mother was ill. It wasn't until she told me her history that the thought wormed its way into my head.
No, really?
Certainly.
Fear for their safety.
I don't know if I ever have a free moment. When your life's work literally hangs over your head, it's always on your mind. Yes, like the Sword of Damocles, but that's hardly the case. Astronomy is what I love, but even a loved one can suffocate you at times. In any case, to answer your question, I like to drink wine and play board games, believe it or not. It's the perfect way to disengage. Oh yes, we can make an entire night of it. Blast Radius, the Legendary Run, oh, they're all good choices. As cliché as it might sound, the Don't Be Bored Games Company really does what it claims. All the times I've played, I've never once been bored. For me, the thrill of discovery is enough. And would it be cruel to say that terrestrials bore me? Well, that's not entirely fair. I've never met an alien after all. Who's to say they aren't dreadful conversation partners? Why, indeed. I suppose, like all discoveries, the point is to not only learn about others, but learn about yourself. There's no denying that humanity is, more or less, a failed experiment. But it's an experiment that's been given a second roll of the dice. An encounter with an advanced civilization would give us something to aspire to be. Or at worst, give us an example of what not to become. And that's why I believe it's important. You have inadvertently said something quite wise. It is, after all, quite fair. Second chances are not something we're entitled to. It's best we don't squander it.
Loading.
Of course.
Ready to make list.
All right, darling.
Ready to check twice.
When walking the tightrope of life, never look down.
Yeah, what do you want? My life's an open book. Mostly a cautionary tale.
Error. Based on current
Well, short
number
story
of
short, I made a
registered
joke at a made
naughty
man's expense and he
children.
wanted payback.
This unit
Thankfully,
is
I got tipped
suffering
off
from
by a
a
pal on the
severe
inside.
gold
Joey,
shortage.
you really crossed the line this time, he says. I know. How much is it gonna cost me to smooth things over, I ask. 2 caps, he says. I'm thinking, 2 caps? That's nothing. What's the catch? Turns out they wanted my kneecaps. I've grown pretty attached to my legs, so I hoofed it out of town with just the clothes on my back and the caps in my pocket. Use 'em or lose 'em, right? Heard Teddy the toe taker was after me, but I doubt he tracked me this far. Don't worry, it's just a nickname. Teddy's actually short for Theodore. Hey, speaking of funny nicknames, do you know Dick is short for Richard? Yeah, no kidding. Now you're probably asking yourself, how do you get Dick from Richard? You gotta ask him nice. Hey-yo! 'Cause I dropped out of school and did a lot of chems. Nah, I'm just breaking your balls. I never went to school. The truth is, it was a survival tactic. I was always a small fry, run to the lip. Easy pickings for gangs and raiders. Comedy kept me alive.
Oh.
And when I was a kid, I was obsessed with one-liners. Every joke I ever heard got committed to memory. I used to be able to buy these packs of gum with a joke inside, and I spent every cent of my allowance buying those packs. I don't even like gum. I hate to admit it, but nearly every joke I know has been borrowed or jacked. Truth is, I'm just another scavenger doing his best to survive. Of course, I'm standing in the spotlight getting an applause doing it, but same thing. 'Cause my aim ain't shit. Oh, oops, sorry, Ma. I couldn't hit water if I fell in a lake. Took me 16 years just to hit puberty. Sure, I'll throw hands in a barroom brawl, but when spit really hits the fan, I get the hell out of Dodge. I guess you could call me a running joke. Zing!
Cannot resolve.
Look, life was hard out there for a kid. Guy like me crosses paths with a raider and all they see is a punching bag. You know, they say when you got a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Well, when you're a comedian, all your problems look like punchlines. So, I crack wise, tell a joke, break the ice, and then I hope they don't break my bones. Exactly. It turns out, if you make them laugh, then maybe they won't make you bleed. Keep them laughing, and maybe they'll keep you alive. Hell, tell them the occasional groaner, and they might even toss a few potatoes your way. Kids gotta eat, right? And that's the story of how Joey Bello became a stand-up comedian. Of course, if I'm lucky enough to get a stool, I'll happily become a sit-down one. Get it?
Holiday. Initiating.
Well, what's on your mind?
Happy holidays.
Nah, not forever. Appalachia's nice, but I'm not sure if it's a fit, you know? I'll be here for a while if you'll have me. Gotta save up some caps. Thanks, boss. I appreciate it. Yeah, I know I joke around a lot, but I mean it. Oh, check it out. Why'd the robot cross the road? It was programmed to be a chicken. I got you. What's the worst thing a prison guard can find at a party? An open bar.
Oh, 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 oh.
That's it.
No.
That's all the jokes I
Everyone
got.
appears to have
Nah, I'm kidding.
This
I
is
borrowed this pair of shoes from my
terrible.
chem dealer. I don't know what they were laced with,
Fearless.
but I've been tripping all day.
Catastrophic levels. Rebooting. Complete.
Good night, everybody.
Oh, oh.
I've made the rounds. What's the deal with robots? The other day, I bumped into this Insultbot. Jeez, they weren't kidding when they said robots were coming for everybody's jobs, were they? But hey, funny's funny. I just might have to, borrow some of his material. Hey, yoink. Well, what's on your mind? Lay it on me.
If you are not satisfied with your gift, this
What, like
unit
smashing melons with a
is
super
not
sledge?
authorized to make
Thanks for the
changes.
advice, but maybe leave the comedy routine to
Contact
me,
your
rookie.
closest Rocco customer
Go
service
get 'em,
help
Tiger.
Workshop for further inquiries.
Not mole hungry, but he think you more friend than food. Fine. More like most dogs, but not this one. More like being mad, but not this kind. More hear about mad dog, and find name confusing. But more not know what Malone means. Maybe it explain. If Malone is doing this, John, Maul think he no saint. Malone remind Maul of Trickster in Grognak issue 20 of Feb. Say one thing, do another. Very tricky. But Grognak see through lie. Maul do same when Malone try to sweet talk him with promise of killing humans.